Alrighty, and that was Sterling Allen catching up on a lot of stuff. Whew. To the folks hanging out over at Justin TV. Right now I see, the count's at about 99 on Justin TV. I notice there's about 60 that are in the active chat room. To the folks who are watching this directly from Justin TV, if you navigate to smartscarecrow.com/live, we do have a chat room there where you can participate with about 60 other folks in a fairly active chatathon where they're basically throwing food at each other and saying all sorts of nasty things about me and Sterling. But I tell you, at this time, considering the time, we best get right into it. Because, there is a few things in the news that I just got to get off my chest. Good evening, and welcome to what passes for the news on the Smart Scarecrow show. Sterling took a little longer tonight than usual. Normally, in a case like that, I would abbreviate my news presentation to compensate for the time, but the items in the news tonight are pretty serious, and I'm going to go ahead and do my usual 30-minute news presentation. So buckle in, refresh your adult beverage, get your snacks ready, because here we go. Sometimes you look at what's going on around you, and I'll tell you, you'd swear you were living through an episode of the Twilight Zone. Now, people my age remember a black and white presentation hosted by a fellow named Rod Sterling, who was a cigarette-smoking sci-fi writer who once a week came up with an interesting story to tell that was always a little stranger than reality. Well, these days, you look at reality, and you wonder if maybe you're caught in one of those black and white Twilight Zone episodes. Headline in the news, April 17th, 2013. Nationwide terror attacks? Boston? California? D.C.? Now, I know everybody's heard a lot about what went on in Boston. Man, that was pretty gruesome. But, kind of an also ran in the news is that there were some incidents out on the West Coast where it looks like somebody took exception to AT&T and cut a big chunk out of their fiber optic bundle and took some pot shots at a transformer station, power distribution center, that quite literally knocked out 911 telephone service, knocked out cell phone services, and threatened to knock out power to a pretty large metropolitan area. Then there was letters received by officials in D.C. that may have contained the poisonous concoction called ricin. I don't know how many of you remember this, but you remember that guy McAfee, the guy who does the antivirus software for your PCs. Remember he was down in Costa Rica or something like that, and he got caught up in some kind of a murder mystery thing, and somebody was after him, and he had to sneak back into the United. Remember all that? Remember that story? Well, one of the things he was saying is that one of the things that got him in trouble was that he had become aware of this trafficking of this poisonous concoction, ricin, from Central America up into the United States, and that he was convinced that there was going to be ricin used as a terrorist assault on the United States, and he kept trying to report it to people, and they wound up accusing him of murder and trying to black bag him in a whole 9 yards. Now, look, I don't know how much stock to put in McAfee's story. I just don't know. All I know is that ricin, all of a sudden, is back in the news. So, well, maybe the revolution has started, and I just didn't get the memo. I don't know. You think about what happened in Boston. Now, is that a revolutionary act? I mean, think about it for a minute. Crystal Campbell, 29 years old, from Arlington, Massachusetts. She was the best, Campbell's distraught mother, Patty, told reporters on Tuesday. You couldn't ask for a better daughter. The family is heartbroken and still in shock. Martin Richard, only 8 years old, from Dorchester, Massachusetts. Like many young boys in New England, Martin Richard loved his Boston Red Sox and the Bruins. He wore his Red Sox second baseman shirt to school. Martin was a terrific athlete, too, but he was also a very good student. A quiet kid, but compassionate. There was a third casualty in Boston. We don't know her name. She was a graduate student, a citizen of China, who was here doing her graduate work in economics. Bottom line is, three people, perfectly innocent, just came out to watch an event of the day. Happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Lost their lives to what can only be described as terrorism. Now, the problem is terrorist and terrorism are words that have been so overused of late that there's been a disconnect. And it's almost hard to tell what's real terrorism and what isn't. I'm sure if you ask some of the folks in Pakistan and Afghanistan, where we've been running drone strikes that have taken out entire families at family dinners and family funerals, they could tell you what terrorism is. Well, this event in Boston certainly qualifies as terrorism. Regardless of who committed the act, this was an act of absolute terrorism. Now, when you think in terms of a revolutionary act, I can understand somebody going after infrastructure. I can understand somebody who's really, really angry, really, really pissed off, cutting a fiber optic feed and maybe shooting up a transformer center to bring down a power distribution. That is the act. That is revolutionary violence. Violence applied to infrastructure of the system. Planting a bomb where your victims are going to be innocent observers of the Boston Marathon, that is just pure terrorism. Now, what is the purpose of terrorism? What do these people have in mind when they commit an act like this? Well, what they really want to do is force a change in the politics of their victim. Terrorism is most often used to force someone to change their politics. We've seen it here in the United States. We saw after 9/11 that the politics of the nation moved severely to the right, to the point where it's pretty hard to tell the difference between the United States and your typical backwater police state. So if, after an incident like what happened in Boston, our politics should become even more repressive, the terrorists have won. What are you going to do? You going to give them their victory? Now, I'll tell you, particularly in the alternative media, there's been a lot of finger pointing and a lot of, oh, it's a false flag this and it's a so-and-so and such and such. Well, let's take a look. Okay, here's a little clip from the Family Guy that a lot of people are pointing to, saying, oh, here they are announcing what they're going to do in advance. Let's take a look at it. Let's keep an open mind. See what you think. Here you go.
Holy crap, this is awesome. I haven't felt a rush like this since I won that marathon.
I'm Bob Costas, here with Boston Marathon winner Peter Griffin. Peter, how did you do it?
I'll tell you, Bob, I just got in my car and drove it. And when there was a guy in my way, I killed him.
Just got in my car and killed him. Boston Marathon. Apparently that was broadcast like a couple weeks before the Boston Marathon. And a lot of people in the alternative media are pointing at that, saying, yeah, that's them Illuminatis, giving fair warning in advance that they're going to do something at the Boston Marathon. Well, hey, hindsight's 20/20. I mean, you can find what you want to find. Well, it also appears that during the Boston Marathon, once again, there was some kind of drill going on where you had Department of Homeland Security and bomb-sniffing dogs and all the pretenses of, they're expecting something in play conveniently at the time that this incident goes down. Very reminiscent of 9/11, when you had all sorts of, stuff going on, drills and so forth that kept the military from taking out the rogue airplanes and all kinds of, remember that? You remember that? Let's listen to this. Now here again, this is some of the evidence that's out there. Listen, consider, make up your own damn mind.
Sure, but they announced over the broadcasting system that this is a training exercise. So they openly said, this is a training exercise, this is a drill. Because there's people out there that are saying that the drill never existed, and many of them are actually police saying that they never even did the training exercise. But this is for sure. You heard that over the broadcast system, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. They did run a drill at the start at the Athletes Village, yes.
Now, do you think, based on what you saw, that they had to have some type of knowledge that there was a bomb threat or something like that? What do you think about the police commissioner who said that they had no prior intelligence whatsoever, and now some of them are denying that there was any type of drill?
I find it hard to comment on that. I mean, we don't know who was involved in these activities. My main thought right now is with the families and the victims. That's my main thing. I'm praying for them. But, I mean, I was there at the Athletes Village. I did see a drill going on and did hear the announcements that it was just a drill. Whether or not there was any prior knowledge, I couldn't comment on that. I couldn't tell you. I mean, the commission says there was no knowledge. There was no knowledge.
No, I understand.
But I mean, there was absolutely a drill going on at the Athletes Village before the race.
Okay, so eyewitnesses say, this guy's got no axe to grind. He was just, he was part of one of the running group's support members. You know, he was probably the guy who carried the bottles of water to the poor guy who's got to run 26 miles. He had no axe to grind. And he's come forward as a witness and said, yes, there was some kind of drill going on. Now, no clarification has been forthcoming from any of our so-called government officials. Used to be called public servants, but now they like to refer to themselves as government officials, but that's okay. Matter of fact, they've more or less denied that any kind of drill was going on. They've denied any pre-warning or advanced knowledge that these bombings were going to take place. Also in the alternative media has been a lot of finger pointing. You know, this fella here has been pointed to as being, you know, very suspicious. Now, first of all, you know, I want to tell you junior G-men out here who were really doing some tough photographic analysis, my congratulations to you, because I'll tell you, I saw some photographic analysis going on from what are really amateur analysts, basically the real media, that was outstanding. And yeah, if I was an investigator, I would definitely want to talk to the fella pictured here. And there's a couple more that these amateur analysts pointed to as being suspicious, that if I were investigating this case, I would definitely have wanted to talk to. It turns out that this guy here was a coach for one of the runners. So, you know, a lot of the alternative media jumped on this poor guy. You know, he's the one, he's the bad guy, he's the one who deposited those bombs. Well, you know, turns out this guy was indeed innocent. But the fact that so many people got so much video and they were able to analyze that video and zero in on suspicious characters, from my point of view, is very encouraging. Because I tell you, it could have been the guy. You just don't know. Now, at present, seems the FBI is most interested in talking to these two fellas. Now, there's no indication that these guys were directly involved. They could be absolutely as innocent as that coach. But apparently, there is some suspicious activity associated with these two fellas that makes them what the law enforcement refers to as persons of interest. Did they do the bombing? Maybe. Maybe not. But they are people that somebody needs to talk to. Need to find out who these fellas are and just what their story is. Now, an incident like what went down in Boston can very easily stampede people, get them all excited, you know. And government, not wanting to waste a really deplorable incident, is often tempted to use such an incident to increase their power. Hey, all you got to do is give me more power and money, and I will keep you safe. Well, how has that worked out for you since 9/11? Okay? All these grabs on your civil liberties, the horrible amounts of money, including all the wars of aggression committed by the United States. We're talking trillions with a T, trillions of dollars since 9/11, supposedly spent to make you safe. How's that worked out for you? Are you any safer now? Yeah, this thing in Boston was a horrible incident. And I tell you what, I hope they find the SOBs that did it. And I hope they spend the rest of their life in a 6x9 with a guy named Bubba who thinks they're pretty. Because that's what they deserve. But the law-abiding do not deserve any more infringement on their civil liberties. And if our recent history since 9/11 is any indication, abrogating more of your civil liberties will certainly not make you any more safe. There were bomb-sniffing dogs. There was Department of Homeland Security. There was more police deployed for this marathon than ever in the history of the marathon. And still, 2 bombs blew up. 3 people were killed. 100 or more were seriously injured. There were 13 amputations. People lost limbs. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And all that police presence, all that security, all those bomb-sniffing dogs couldn't keep it from happening. If you live your life in fear, shame on you. Next marathon near you, take your kids. Take a lunch in a big black backpack and have a good time. Don't let incidents like this scare you or keep you from living your life the way you're expected to live it. And don't let government use an incident like this to keep you in fear. If you do, the terrorists have won. And that is bullshit. And that was Scarecrow's news rant for April 18th, 2013. Hope I got you thinking about those issues.